Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Happy May! Yay! I love May because Mayflowers. Although in Texas our wildflower season starts in like late March to April. It's also in May, but we've already had wildflowers for a while. But anyway, today we're doing our April reading wrap up, and I tell ya, this was my busiest reading month of 2026 so far. I read 9 books in April, and I was this close to 10, but the 10th book I actually finished on May 1st. So it's gonna be my May reading wrap up, but I was so close. Of course, 3 of the 9 books were novellas, so that definitely helped ratchet up our reading count there, but still, 9 books is quite the feat, I think, for 1 month. At least for me. I know some people read so many books a month, and those people amaze me. But for me, I think 9 is a pretty good number. So, to start off, the first book that I finished in April was Heart of the Glen by Jennifer Deibel. This was my first Jennifer Deibel book, but I have heard so many good things about her, especially from Book Lover Amanda, whose channel, if you haven't checked out, you should, because she's pretty awesome. She loves her. But not just from her. I've heard really good things about Jennifer Deibel from many different sources. And I did, about a year or 2 ago, I did pick up one of her books, and I forget which one it was, and I read like the first chapter, but I think the main character was talking about feeling like she was getting like dreams from her dead mother, and I was like, no, like that's not for me. So I put that one down, but there was nothing like that in this one. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 stars. It had me in tears at one point. It had such a good story. So it follows Schwarz, who she got a new job at an estate, but when she gets there, she finds out that the owner of the estate has passed and the estate has closed down, so she doesn't have a job. So she basically just starts walking down the road because she has nowhere else to go. And she's rescued by a girl named Aileen, who lives with her brother Owen. And they have a sheep farm, and they take her in, but their farm is struggling right now, so they really don't have, you know, the extra funds to take her in, so it's a bit of a problem. But they also can't just leave her out to the elements, so they take her in, and she starts helping them on the sheep farm. And they're weavers, so they have the sheep farm, and then they use the sheep's wool to weave these really intricate fabrics. So there was a lot in here about weaving and the practice of it, which was really interesting. You could tell it was really well researched. The romance between Schwarz and Owen was really sweet. They both have some struggles in their past that they have to overcome, and there's a lot of spiritual and faith elements in this story that were really, really good. It is like a more serious book. Like, there wasn't a lot of levity in this book, I'll tell you that. I mean, they're struggling in their life, and every page, you know, they're struggling with something. So it definitely wasn't like a super cheerful book, but it was a really strong and deep and moving book. So I gave it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. The next book I read had a lot more levity in it, and that was Not Exactly Mr. Darcy by Carolyn Miller. This is the first in the Silver Teapot series. I have the second book on my TBR to get to soon. So this one follows Olivia, who is Australian, but she goes to England to take care of her grandmother for a couple months because her grandmother had some kind of surgery, maybe hip surgery, I don't remember, but some kind of medical thing. And so she comes to take care of her, and while she's there, she starts helping out on a local historical estate, and she meets Liam, who is the gardener on the estate, and they are helping to bring back the estate and to return it to its former glory, and to save it from financial ruin. And there's also maybe a little bit of secret identity in here that I won't get into, but yeah, it was very cute. Very sweet romance. I look forward to the next one, which is I want want to say not precisely Mr. Knightley. It's not something Mr. Knightley. There's some descriptor in there. I think it's not precisely, but I'm not sure. Anyway, but I did quite enjoy it, and I gave it 4 stars. So the next book that I read was the first of 3 novellas for April, and that was Dear Beth by Alyssa Schwarz. I started reading the Prescott family romance series at the beginning of last year. I read the first 2, I think, and so at the beginning of this year I picked up this one, which is a prequel novella, and I also picked up the last book in the series, which I'm currently reading right now. So I read this prequel novella. It follows Ty Prescott, who is a veterinarian who moves back to Loveland, where he used to live, and has a bit of a second chance romance with his ex-girlfriend Beth, who I think she works in a bookstore. But it actually is set against the backdrop of a remailing program that the city of Loveland does. And this is like a real program, apparently. I had no idea before I read this book. But apparently every year for Valentine's Day, people mail their letters to Loveland, Colorado, and then there's like a team of volunteers that give the Valentine's Day letters like a special Loveland stamp, and then remail it for them to whoever it was supposed to go to. And it's apparently a really popular program. Like in the author's note, she said something about there being like a multi-year wait list just to be a volunteer in this program. So that's really cool, and I really enjoyed reading about it in this little novella. I gave this 4 stars. It was cute. I liked it. So, the next 6 books are all Jen Turano books. I guess you could say April was the month of Jen Turano. I started working my way through her backlist last year, and yeah, I got 6 of her books done in April, and I think I just have like 6 more before I'm done with her backlist, which is pretty cool. But those 6 won't be done in May, I'll tell you that. I'm going to take a little break and focus on other books before I get back to it. So the first one, so I read 2 Jen Turano novellas. One was At Your Request, which I gave 5 stars, and it was the first one. It was the prequel for the I think it was the Out of the Ordinary series, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. But it's in a way a second chance romance. It follows a young woman, which all of Jen Turano novels are Gilded Age novels. They take place in the Gilded Age around the time of, the New York 400 and that time period. And so this woman, her family kind of lost their fortune, and so she's fallen on the social scale, and she's become a wallflower, and she works as like a social secretary to support herself and her family. And she had a very close friend whose proposal she rejected during her debut season, but now he's back and he has made his own fortune. And she's a little nervous to see him because she knows she turned him down, and now she's embarrassed about how she's fallen. And yeah, it takes off from there. It was super cute. I gave it 5 stars. I think the whole novella takes place in like one night. Maybe 2 days. Let me think. Yeah, I think it takes place over like 2 days, actually. Not just one night. But like 2 days. So it was interesting. So yeah, I gave that one 5 stars. And the next novella that I read was Gentleman of Her Dreams, which this one is the prequel to the series that I read in April. So I had already read the entire series that At Your Request was the prequel for, but I hadn't read the series yet of Gentleman of Her Dreams. So I read that prequel first. And I didn't enjoy that one as much. I only gave it 4 stars, which is still a really good review. But this one is her very first series, and I forget the name of the series, but I'll put it up on the screen. So Gentleman of Her Dreams follows a girl who, and I cannot remember their names, y'all. Like, their names are just gone. But this girl, she has decided that she wants to marry. And she's decided who she wants to marry. And she basically enlists her best friend's help. Her best friend is a ship captain, and he's just come back to visit. And he was coming back hoping to spark something up between the two of them. And when he gets home, she's like, you have to help me get this guy to marry me. And he's like, what? So it kind of takes off from there. And I did give it 4 stars. It was cute. So then the next 4 books I read were all in that series, which is her very first series. The first one is, excuse me. The first one is A Change of Fortune. I gave this one 4 stars, and it follows a young woman. She is a English aristocrat. Her father was, I think, an earl, but when he passed away, his steward steals all their money, and so she's penniless, and so she takes a job as a governess in New York because she's trying to track this guy down and kind of expose him and get her money back. And she ends up crossing paths with a man by the name of Hamilton Beckett, and he also has reasons of tracking down not this guy, but a guy that this guy's in business with, so that's why their paths cross and they kind of join forces and things go from there. So I gave that one 4 stars. The next book in the series is called A Most Peculiar Circumstance, and so the whole series follows this one little friend group in the New York 400. So Most Peculiar Circumstance follows my mind just totally went blank on this book. So the one book is about her brother, which I think that one was A Talent for Trouble. And then A Match of Wits is about his brother. Oh, I know. Okay. I had to think about it. So during A Change of Fortune, they hire a private investigator to help them out with this. And the second book, A Most Peculiar Circumstance, is about the private investigator, Theodore Wilder, and then the girl in the book is Hamilton Beckett's sister, Arabella. So Arabella is a suffragist champion. She travels all over the country speaking at suffragist events and trying to help women in need. And Theodore Wilder is kind of thinks women belong in a certain place in society, and he's not for the suffragist movement. But they're thrown together when Hamilton asks Theodore to track Arabella down because she's off on some crusade, and the family's kind of lost track of her. So they ask Theodore to use his private investigator skills to go find her and bring her home, and things take off from there. So this one I gave 3.5 stars. I just didn't quite enjoy it as much as the previous books, So next we have A Talent for Trouble, which this one follows the girl from book 1, whose name, I want to say her name is Serafina, but I'm not positive on that. But her brother, Grayson, so he is the hero of this book, and the girl in this book, I forget her name, but she is one of their friends, and she has basically suffered a broken heart, and she's kind of thrown caution to the wind and said, my heart's broken, I'm gonna live whatever way I want. And Grayson is kind of there to try to rein her in a little bit. They keep getting thrown into circumstances together. So I gave this one 2 stars. I didn't enjoy it that much, mostly because I didn't like her. I did not like the girl in this book. She kind of annoyed me. She was a little too off the rails for my personal preference, a little too crazy. And also at this point in the series, things started getting kind of repetitive. Like I said, this is Jen Turano's very first series of novels, and I have to say, I definitely saw a difference between, you know, her first series and the series that she has coming out right now, which of course is completely understandable because your writing is always going to get better the more you write, the more you publish. Things are just going to get better and better typically. But I felt like this series kind of got a bit repetitive with the antics, which really came into focus for me in the fourth book. So the fourth book was A Match of Wits, and this is the book that I was looking forward to the most because it follows Hamilton Beckett's brother Zane Beckett and a girl named Agatha. And so these two were thrown together from the very first novel. So in the first novel, which was A Change of Fortune, Agatha is the part of the family that is employing this English aristocrat. I'm going to call her Seraphina because I think that's her name, but I'm not positive that's her name. But just for the sake of this video, I'm going to pretend that it is. So Seraphina was working for a governess. She was governing Agatha's younger sisters. And so she and Agatha become really good friends. And so Agatha is helping her track down the guy who stole her fortune. And so Agatha and Zane are thrown together from the very beginning. And Agatha has this crush on Zane, but Zane is kind of promised to another woman. So Agatha is like, fine, we'll just be friends. And they are friends throughout the series, until at the end of A Talent for Trouble, Zane takes off to California to finally propose to this woman he's been promised to since childhood, but it doesn't work out. And so in A Match of Wits, 2 years have passed, and Agatha is traveling. She's a journalist for a New York newspaper, and she's traveling out west to get stories, and she comes across him. He was embarrassed about the fact that, you know, he's been promised to this girl since childhood, but it didn't work out, and so he's refused to come home. So when she finds him, she realizes he's in pretty bad shape, and she pretty much is like, I'm gonna get you home to your family. And things pick up from there. And I really love their dynamic throughout the first 3 books, and I was so looking forward to their story. But when I got to their story, it just kind of felt like a repeat of what we had with the first 3 books. And by that, I mean, all 4 books in the series have this kind of similar dynamic of antics, of these girls that are just doing things kind of outside of society's bounds and getting into trouble, and the guys just kind of exasperatingly trying to rein them in and to help them out. And for A Match of Wits, it does look a little different because Zane is injured during most of the book, so he can't exactly run to her rescue most of the time. But, like, for example, all 4 girls end up in jail at some point during one of their novels. And so it's like, it's done for laughs, and it's done for, like, the gimmick in a way, but it's just like we're repeating the same gimmicks in each book. And I just felt like in the first 3 books, Agatha and Zane had a very intriguing dynamic in the fact that they were best friends, but she kind of had this secret crush on him, which he was kind of aware of, but he was also, you know, promised to this other girl since childhood, so he was trying to keep it platonic. And they just had this really interesting dynamic and friendship for the first 3 books, and I was looking forward to that being explored more in the 4th book, but then in the 4th book, I felt like we just returned to the same dynamic that we had in the first 3 books. And again, it was a dynamic that was kind of enemies to lovers in a way. Like, all 4 of these couples, I mean, Arabelle and Theodore are definitely the most enemies to lovers because he has a problem with her suffragist movement. But in all 4 books, we have this kind of bickering, you annoy me, I annoy you, we don't like each other, but oh wait, maybe we do like each other kind of thing. And I felt like that didn't really make sense for Agatha and Zane's Bennett because they had this long friendship before that, and then it was just kind of forced in the 4th book to go along with this theme that we'd had all 4 books. So I don't know, it just to me felt like we were just repeating the same dynamics we'd had for the entire series, and I just didn't want to see that. I wanted to see more individuality in each couple and not just feel like I was kind of reading the same relationship dynamics in 4 different stories. 4 stories that were very similar, if I'm being honest. And so again, I think that that has to do with the fact that it was her first series and that it's definitely, her writing has definitely grown since then. You know, I love the series that she's on now. I've loved most of the books I've read from her. This series just got a little bit repetitive for me. So anyway, A Match of Wits was the book that I was looking forward to most in the series because I wanted to explore that dynamic between Zane and Agatha, but I ended up only giving it 3.5 stars. I still liked it more than A Talent for Trouble because, as I said, I just really didn't like the girl in A Talent for Trouble, so much so that I can't tell you what her name is at this point. She just really annoyed me for some reason. So yeah, it wasn't my least favorite in the series, but I definitely at that point felt that I was tired of the same dynamics being repeated in the series, and I was a little disappointed because I had hoped for more from Agatha and Zane, if that makes sense. So that was all 9 books that I read in April. I'd love to know what you guys read. I'd love to know if you read Jen Turano's first series, and again, I forget the name of the series, but if you've read it, let me know what you think. Do you guys feel like the storylines were kind of repeated throughout the series, or do you think that they were unique in their own way? Let me know, because I would love to hear from you guys. I mean, like I said, reading is so subjective. It's basically everybody's opinion is their opinion, and so my opinion is definitely not law, and I'd love to hear if you guys feel differently or if you feel the same. Let me know. I will see you in the next video.